So hi for everyone who is here. I'm Karina Klaffe and I'm running our startup accelerator at Female Founders, where we support female-led startups in a 3-month program to get investment ready. And I have the pleasure to introduce you to this session now. It's about mastering your network and improving your networking skills. And I'm happy to have APX here today with 2 female founders that will talk a bit about how to build and leverage on your network. So I'm happy to introduce Mor Eini. She's she's responsible for strategic partnership and growth at APX. Then we have Melanie Schröder. She's the Director of Finance and Portfolio at APX. And we have 2 founders, one being Tine, Schlaak, the VP Sales at Sharpist, an outcome-driven platform for people development powered by coaching. And we also have Linda Ahrens with us, the founder of Unown, the end-to-end platform for non-ownership economy. One last remark from my side before we jump directly into the session. If you have questions during the session, please post them in the chat. And if there's still enough time, I will address them at the end to that amazing panel that we have here. So enjoy.
Thank you very much, Karina. And hello and welcome to Master Your Network event. My name is Mor Eini, and as Karina mentioned, I will be your moderator for today. I'm Strategic Partnerships and Growth Manager at APX, and my role is to support our B2B portfolio companies with their sales and business development. And before we jump into the questions, I just want to give you kind of like the reason why we decided to discuss this important topic today. We all know that networking is important in so many aspects of our life, and I guess I don't even need to elaborate on that. But as a founder, it's become even more crucial, as you really need to bring your personal connection and leverage it to sales, marketing, and fundraising. From a VC perspective, we understand that our job is not only to give money, but also to open the doors to potential clients, investors, and partners. And if I didn't mention it, APX is a joint venture of Axel Springer and Porsche, and we invest in early-stage startups, and we continue with them as they grow. Today, we will discuss with some of the most impressive people I know, Melanie, Tine, and Linda, their approach to networking, how they leverage their network into their career, and how can we better network in this virtual environment or virtual world that we're all in it. So hi, Melanie, hi, Tina, and hi, Linda. And before we jump into the first question, I just want to mention that we have a lot of questions, but we also want to hear you. So we'll give enough time for you to ask any kind of question that you want, and let's make it this discussion as open and as lively as possible. So I'd like to start. I would like to ask 3 of you, what is your personal experience with networking? And maybe if you can make it tangible and share your own experience on how networking has helped you to advance your career or to grow your company. So maybe Tina, will start with you.
Yes, thank you, Mor, and thanks for having me on the session. Networking has definitely been one of the fundamental aspects for me to advance me personally, but also my career. And saying that even Mor and Melanie are one of the core elements of advancing Sharpist at the moment as our investors. And when it comes to networking, for example, Mor has always made introductions for me. And one of the most recent introductions which really helped me advance was Minky, which is an APX startup. And we entered a partnership, which is not only good for us because we get active breaks in our product right now, but also for them because I help them with, for example, sales advice. I remember the early days of networking, I was super afraid. Like going there, I was standing in the corner. I really wanted just to leave again. I wanted to listen to the talk and not be there, but it took me some time to understand the value of networks, right? So I started very slowly with, I want to get to know one person before I leave, and then you see the person again, and that person introduces you, and it becomes less awkward. So for me, it's been a journey if you ask me about my experience.
Linda, what's your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at my career so far, I think every single job I got through my network, and every single thing that happened was through my network. So I actually never really applied I did apply in other ways, in like former when I was an employee, but I never made it. So actually, so in my in my personal experience, it's been like fundamental. And I think I've started early on, basically at bachelor level at my universities, where luckily they were always quite small, which made it sort of natural to then connect the dots and connect with people, and then keep these ties strong. So for me, that's my foundation, and I think that's also probably something in terms of networking that you will always have. You will have that sort of foundation and then build from that foundation, because it's always sort of a network effect, obviously, where you then build more and more ties in other directions, and it spills out from your center in a way. And even now, like now being an employer, I do it the same way. So I mean, we got two of our colleagues, two of our employees from our former jobs already, and I'm basically planning to do that again, because it's just so much more successful.
Melanie, maybe from your point of view, as a VC, but also as a Melanie, from your personal life and professional life, it will be interesting to hear your point of view.
Yeah, so as you already mentioned, more in venture capital and also my role at APX, networking, of course, is crucial. Myself and my teams, we are working with our investor network, not only connecting our startups, but also building and growing this network. So that's actually part of my job. And I've been doing this the last 5 years. However, I started quite differently in my career. I started as a finance professional in corporate controlling. And back there, networking was not that, it was important, but back then I didn't really see it. And being a finance person, a bit introverted and having all these kind of people around you, it's really rare that you go to an event or something and everyone would really, as Tine said before, more stick to the people they know or stay in the corner. And then suddenly, after switching my career and going to VC, I was starting with this, in this complete new world with all these events and all these networks and people connecting all the time and creating business opportunities. And this was quite a switch for me, and also something I really had to learn. And I think my biggest learning was to find my own way in this, to really also realize it's important to network and I like it and it's actually fun, but maybe I do it just differently than other people, just because also the way, of my personality is or I am. I think that's the biggest learning for me.
We will have a question later about authenticity, if we will have time. But before that, I want to ask all of you, do you feel, or what is the role of gender in networking situation? We are all in this, I would say, business/technology environment, which is still, unfortunately, very male-dominated. And in situation where you feel like you're the only woman in a room full of men, does it work to your advantage or not? Or do you feel like maybe it doesn't make any difference at all? Maybe if you can share some stories or examples how it works in your life, in your career, and at work. Maybe Linda, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a super tough question, because I think there's only so much that maybe I, as a woman, see, and then there might be, backroom talk, basically, and all of those back channels that you never really fully know about, and they are happening. And to some extent, they're probably not happening as much within the female community as they are within like boys clubs. But that being said, I still feel so imagining that room full of men. I still feel it's not that much. It's not as much a gender question. Like for me personally, my experience, it's more a matter of: is it a room full of strangers? Or is it a room full of, are there people I can connect with? And I mean, whenever I have these situations where I feel like, oh, wow, you know, this meme where it always says like, congrats, it's an all-male panel. You've got an all-male panel. Whenever you get in these situations, I actually use it to like just make a joke. I mean, I always confront people with what's happening and basically show them like, do you realize it's just men here? How is this even possible? And then you break the ice in a way, I feel. And it's sort of, in terms of authenticity, that's the way definitely I do it. It's just then play it to my advantage in a way. But still, you never really know what happens behind the scenes in a way within the boys club. And I think that's something that's a bit more tricky.
Maybe from also the financial point of view, how do you perceive it?
So I also definitely made this experience of being the only woman in a room, also in a big boardroom. I even had the experience that I was in a boardroom, and suddenly the board member started to talk about something I wasn't supposed to hear, and only after a couple of minutes they noticed I'm sitting there. Like, this is, I think, something this happens all the time. Like, maybe not so much anymore, but especially when I was younger. Also, it maybe happens that you're not taking this seriously. Especially, I'm more talking now also about just older, the typical, what we sometimes say, old white men. But I really see also that there's a change now, and I really, I liked it a lot. And I think especially as women, we can really now embrace it as all and seize the opportunity. And there's so many now opportunities to network differently or to have panels and conferences like this. So I would really like to concentrate more on the opportunities we have now, and then moving towards a more inclusive networking and exchange. Of course, it hasn't always been great in the past, but yeah, I think we are there now. And we're not there yet, but we are moving in the right direction.
Tine, maybe from also a sales perspective, as you're working with a lot of, I would say, big corporate conservative clients, how do you see that?
Yes, especially in my last job, I was selling to automotive, like very traditional companies, white male men. And I remember in 2016, I was on the Automobile Messe IAA, and I walked into the room of 500 men, literally. And what I experienced in the first place is I normally was underestimated, right? I was in a panel and speaking about data and AI, and then someone came to me, it's like, oh, I didn't think a woman could speak about this topic. I was like, okay, apparently you see I can. And it's like, you know, breaking down the boundaries in the mind. Oftentimes they just, or it has been perceived that a woman can't do that thing. But yeah, you can, obviously. And I always looked into, if you go to a meetup or something, or to a congress, I looked into the panelist list or the speaker list and found one person where I would, you know, learn a little more about this person and then go to that person, already have a mutual connection. For example, I would drop the university or someone we have in common to, you know, break the ice and get into that. But I also think it's really changing, and there's so much more attention to it, and you can actually be an active part in inviting also the other side to just come closer and not make it about gender, but making about the topic and expertise.
I think you all mentioned how challenging it is to network. And I think as a human beings, it's totally natural that it's sometimes very difficult to kind of like reach out to someone and say, hey, I mean, how are you? So I was wondering if you have any tips or tricks for people, maybe, I don't know, even it's introvert versus extrovert, but people that don't naturally enjoy networking. How to work from kind of like, to do it from a positive attitude, and maybe even to enjoy networking. Maybe Melanie, you want to start?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it's really important to know networking is not only to go to an event and mingle and then come back with 10 new contacts. I think that's what we often understand when we think about networking, but that's only one form of it. And I learned, for me, that's maybe not the form I'm best in it. I did the same, like Tine said before, having this goal, meeting at least one person I connect with, and this works. I think you can really push yourself as well. But also there are other forms. And if you're better in a one-on-one conversation and scheduling calls these days, or not dinners, but maybe lunches with people, then that's also fine. And it's also not only about meeting new people, but reaching out to existing networks. So to really not only dedicate time to meet new people, but also to re-engage the people you know already, or help them out if they need something, to really strengthen this connection. So it's not only the quantitative aspect, but really the quality. I think that's, for me at least, is it's really important. Yeah, just to know and have in mind.
Linda?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. And I think it's, for me, it's always been sort of the starting point then of reaching further. So I'm also not the one to, I'm not an introvert, but I'm still not the one to basically enter a room and introduce myself to you know, like random people. That always feels odd, not to everybody, but definitely to me. And I think having that mutual contact is always something that is so helpful for me. And then I build a lot around, I guess, content. So much like Tine has said, so do we have a common denominator? Do we have a common, have we had a common sort of step in our line in our CV? Is there something we can basically talk about where we both have expertise also? That's been something. And then I guess much of the reservations around networking come from the idea that you want to have something from them. And then you don't feel comfortable in that situation. And maybe that's also a bit of a gendered thing. And I definitely also often think about what can I deliver? I mean, what can I bring to the table and what can I do for them? Can I build, sort of open up my network? Can I build ties? Do I know something? Do I know a study that I can send over? That kind of thing, where I'm then in the position of having already given something, which sort of, yeah, makes it easier maybe for people. It's not always about asking other people to basically help myself out.
Yeah, to create value for both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Tine?
Yes, that's also my main point, is having a mutual beneficial, connection where both parties profit from it. I really think about that. If you're in a startup, you normally need two things, right? This is talent, and the other thing is clients or money to grow. So when I think about networking, just from a very, my own perspective, how I advance the company and us, it's normally build a network of talent that could potentially work there, but also have the network of talent if you hear about another job which opens up, so someone else can profit from it. And when it comes to networking, I would always advise, tell everyone what you're looking for. The more you make that obvious, the easier it is to connect. Sometimes you're holding back on what you actually want to get out, but if you sometimes just put it on the table, it's like, I'm looking for a VP of whatever, people are more inclined to be like, oh, I know someone, rather than you take too much time to build that up.
So basically, you need to help people to help you.
Yeah.
By putting it on the table.
Yeah.
And maybe to add on this, also what I learned is the more personal, the better. So for a while ago, I was also thinking about a career change, and I just reached out to several people just to talk about, what are you actually doing? How can I get into there? And I was surprised how many people are open to actually help and they want to talk about it. And this was a really personal topic. And of course, you're not only having personal issues you want to discuss, but I still feel if you go somewhere as a human being, and as you said, say, oh, really looking for this position to drive my startup further. That's my passion. I want to do this. I'm so excited about it. I think that's really helping, so that people can see you as a person and then also want to help you. It's something I at least experienced.
Yeah, I totally agree here. You really need to kind of like be open to it. And as I know that there are a lot of founders in the audience, and most of us probably were used to go to like networking event and mingle with people and bump into one another next to the coffee machine. As a founder and also as a VP sales, it's very challenging to do it now in the virtual world. And both of you, Tine and Linda, you did amazing during this time. And I will let you share like your kind of like accomplishment during this time. And also, Melanie, from your point of view, do you have any best practices on how I can raise money, increase my sales clients? How, Melanie, you see it from an investor point of view, how VC can support their startups that now want to raise money when everything is digitally, and when we don't meet each other in person, then we don't have this kind of like a coincidence that we bump into someone that might be our potential client or investor. Maybe, Melanie, you want to start with kind of like your observation on it?
Yes. So I can mostly speak actually about the fundraising part. And yeah, I have to say that our industry changed so quickly. Like I would say a year ago, no one would have said they would make any investments without meeting the founders in person. now this is happening, or at least maybe one quick meeting, but a lot also happens now in video calls, and it actually became much more efficient. And I would say I almost met more people now because it's so easy to just reach out, schedule a half-an-hour call to get to know each other. And it's not quite the same as having a drink at a bar, but it's still, you exchange the main information, you get to know each other, and then you can jump to the next one. And so I would say it's actually helpful. You need to, especially as a startup, be much more prepared. You have to know who you want to talk. Not so much happens spontaneously anymore. There you can help, ask your network, of course, for contacts, for introductions. Someone like APX would help you, but also, of course, other investors or people you know. Of course, it always helps to have a warm intro that someone can just tell you, okay, please talk to each other. But I also heard of startups who reached out via LinkedIn to potential investors and got positive feedback. So if it's really a targeted approach, you really say, okay, that's what I want, that's why I want you. It can work, maybe not with everyone. So yeah, I would really say it is possible. It's not only these personal, random experiences, and especially with fundraising, it works well for some reason. It's really also for us, like we do our whole deal flow now digitally, and it's great.
Yeah, I can say it that we invest during Corona in tens of companies without even meeting them in person. In my opinion, it's just opened a different kind of like new pool of opportunities to invest also in other places we never thought to invest before. Tine, how do you see it?
I think it has one big upside and one big downside, right? So the upside is that your network is not limited to your city anymore. Before you would go to meetups in Berlin and meet people there. Now you have meetups which are even Germany-wide, Europe-wide. I'm in a network of women where we would have a Berlin chapter now. Obviously, every Thursday in the month we meet, and there are 200 people talking about the same topic, and it's like exponentially growing, right? So the boundaries are not there anymore for networking in the physical space. On the other hand, I feel we all know Zoom fatigue. I have over 30 Zoom calls a week normally. I'm managing a team, working with clients, and it's hard to get someone on another Zoom call, so it needs to be really special. And it's kind of redesigning the experience. And what I've been exploring and using is recreating that experience with sending out vouchers for like coffee, or sending home food for dinner, or sending a book with vouchers via LinkedIn to like get a conversation started and say like, hey, I think this book would really benefit you. They can order it on Amazon, and then you have another point of contact. But I see the Zoom fatigue and the whole over-digitized work week as another threat to this digital networking as well.
That's super interesting. You send those books or coffee vouchers to potential clients, or really? Wow. Okay. I think it's a really cool tip.
There's a software called ReachDesk, or it's a company where you can just get Amazon vouchers for anyone. So even if people prospect into me, like software companies, they're like, hey, it's a 10 euro Amazon voucher. I recommend you buy this book, and then you just click it and you get it.
Okay, that's actually super cool. Thank you for that. Linda, how do you see that?
Yeah, I do. I would agree. It's the interesting thing about it is maybe that it even like democratizes a bit sort of how you get introductions or how you get to talk to people these days, because I actually felt, I mean, we've done a whole investment round during lockdown and just during lockdown. So basically we've, apart from APX, whom we actually obviously worked with before, we have not physically met a single of our investors. So we're still waiting for that to happen at some point. But, and I did feel like during that time, my calendar was just filled back to back with investor meetings. And definitely a lot of fatigue is then kicking in. And I think it's not easy to keep the energy up and also keep your own energy up to not repeat yourself and be like dull and boring in a way. But then again, I felt like everybody was so responsive with actually taking these calls, because everybody sort of needs to rearrange the way, everybody had to reinvent the way they are doing things. And that was also an opportunity, I'm sure, for us, for example, to take more calls, take more meetings and all of that. And I've gone by the rule of just taking all of the intros that I receive. So even if I don't see like a clear match or whatever, I'm not sure where this should lead. I'm taking a lot of intros, and that is definitely also tiring because I feel it's always sort of it takes a certain energy to get to know a new person, but still it's just a chance to an opportunity that is interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree, and kudos for raising the round. You deserve a big round of claps, and I'm sure there are other founders that are thinking to themselves, okay, how can I do it when everyone are home and I can't really meet? So I think it's I guess it's a topic for another discussion on how you did it. But we spoke a lot about authenticity, and this will be my last question, and then I'll give the mic to our audience. How do you keep it real? How do you make sure that, we are usually doing networking when we have a goal in mind, either it's sales or fundraising or hiring. How do you make sure that you stay yourself, but actually manage to deliver the message and doing it in the best way possible, and to kind of like balance this networking with focus to remaining who you are? Maybe Tina, do you want to start?
Yes, for me it started with the question, what do I stand for? Right, so early in my career I started in education. It became really clear that I want to go in the space of digital education, lifelong learning, and I'm a lifelong learner myself. So I kind of wanted to understand what do I stand for, and then when I connect, I can clearly talk about my vision and who I want to become, and then people can really easily connect if they know what you stand for. And I can only network if I know where I want to go and what I stand for. So that is my one advice, to really think about what are you trying to be in your bigger picture, so to say.
Interesting. Linda? It's very difficult to answer after I have to say, after your answer.
And it is, I think it's super hard to reflect on authenticity and how you do and whether you do it in a way, like just like being, to be honest, I wouldn't be super sure that I'm doing it all the time. I would really need to think about it, but in a way, the more work experience that I had over the last years in my previous jobs until now, the more probably like comfortable I became with what I can do and where I'm good at, and also where I sometimes might be a bit weird for some people, because I have a tendency to speak sort of long sentences and then lose sort of my key point in the middle. And I just became a bit more comfortable with that fact. It is what I do. And at least to some people, it's sort of, it puts a smile on their face. So I became more comfortable with that sort of what started off as an insecurity maybe. And I just play that out in a way now too. And I don't try to, in a way, like hide things or whatever that I'm not, that I could reflect on being weird or being different or not being sort of sales script ready or whatever. So I think, but after like, that being said, I don't think we always are authentic. And that's probably also not a problem. I don't know. What do you think? Do you get my point?
I think we all get your points.
Yeah.
We're all human beings. Maybe Melanie, you want to kind of like take it from here?
Yeah. I mean, to get the most out of it, I think it's two things. One is a bit of the random networking, just getting to know people. And the other one is, if I have a certain goal in mind, if it's the second one, I would say preparation is also really important. If you have a sales call, or if you talk to, in my case, it's often an investor call, to really be prepared, to know what I want, to know something about the person I talk to have some follow-up material, ideally. This helps me because it gives me structure, and maybe even write down some questions, or I have a checklist what I want to ask. And so automatically also have a guidance for my meeting then, so this is helpful. And for the more random meetings, I think authenticity I can't even pronounce it, but that's really important for sure. I would say add here, it's also important to cut yourself a bit of slack if you maybe feel, if you get insecure. I actually have a story in this regard to share. So like on Monday we had a session just for the speakers here, and it was similar, like this setting was like 5 people in a breakout room, and there was not really a moderation, it was just random talking about a question, and we had 2 really amazing women, but they were really good on stage, so they basically just talked the whole time, and then I almost didn't get a word in, and then I felt a bit like, oh, now I didn't say anything, and now I didn't make this connection. So what I just did is, and I wrote down the names of everyone and then connected on LinkedIn, and now the next 2 weeks I have follow-up calls with like 3 or 4 of these people, and I know this will be a good call because that's a one-on-one situation I'm comfortable with, and I didn't really perform maybe in this stage situation, but that's okay. And I also, as I said, didn't get mad or sad about it and then just write it all off. But I was like, okay, I have my strategy and I follow it. And I think that's also a way to stay authentic, to just really know what you're good at and to follow this.
Yeah, I think we all definitely agree, and I think we probably feel more comfortable when we are doing the thing that we believe in it. And as Tine, you started and say, it's like, what is my values and how I perform best? And I think, Lena, it's also connected to you, that we also like, it's not that we are 100% all the time authentic.
No, and I think Melanie is super right with just like cutting oneself a bit of slack, where it's like probably also the typical like overperformer, overachiever, insecure overachiever syndrome, where we think, oh, could I have improved on my networking in that situation? And that's where you just have to be a bit, I guess, like kind to yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And now I'm handing it over to your questions, and please feel free. I think we managed to create here kind of like a circle of trust, as much as you can do with more than 100 people, and being very honest and open. Just kind of like I was thinking at the moment that I wonder how it's going to be when we will back to normal life, how the networking will look like. Is it like still be the same? And we have the first question. And it's a very good one. I actually also wanted to ask it, but I see that it's interesting for everyone. How do you maintain or stay in contact with your existing network? Whoever want to start can go for it.
I can start. So I borrowed actually one piece of advice from marketing or content marketing. So because I'm in a very small space like online education, I have kind of a content calendar for LinkedIn, which I write in the beginning of the month, look for some articles, some events I want to post. So my network constantly gets some updates and feedback from me. And then if people like it or comment it, I reach out to them and get in touch again. I also have a list of 5 people I want to reach out or talk to in the month. That's something I do on a very deliberate basis. And then, look for active introductions. So Mor probably has given me more than 10 introductions since we've been working together, and I met so many wonderful people for that. So also thank you for that, Mor.
Thank you. Yeah, with pleasure. I would say maybe it's kind of like a promotion here, that I think that's also the role of a VC, to open the doors and to really make sure that our founders will meet each other first of all, but will also meet any kind of like potential clients or VCs or anyone that might help them. Melanie, do you want to also take it from here?
Yeah, I think what I do is in a way connecting the dots a bit, like just listening, reading on LinkedIn what people are looking for, and then whenever I think of someone to make this connection, I think that's something I like to do for my network in a way. And it doesn't always work out great, of course, but then at least the person says, oh yeah, thanks for thinking of me, it's not for me, but let's have a chat or something. So that works quite nice. And then this, just I would like to reach out more and schedule more like of these reconnecting calls. I struggle a bit with time, However, I also think that's, and I should tell this myself again, it's something you should make time for, like really dedicate some networking time. If it's new contacts or re-engaging, I think that's something, I think it's really helpful, but I also do not enough for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would have to agree. I'm also not doing that enough. And I think whenever I do it, it's probably like qualitatively, it's a bit more then. So it goes more in depth or goes more into detail, or is more about actually, proposing something or connecting the dots, that kind of thing. But definitely, I'm also not one to actively engage like a network of a few dozen or a few hundred people. And I think it is, especially also, I think when you're in the B2B sector as well, for example, LinkedIn, the way that Tine has described it is, I think, also super smart, because you keep your crowd engaged in a way. I feel like some founders actually build their whole sales strategy around that, it feels. And I think that's a clever strategy. Personally, I'm a bit of a strong ties person, where I have a few people that I really build strong ties with, and then we count on each other in a way to bounce off ideas and give us those introductions that we need. And then I really try to foster these people, whom in a way they are then also friends. Of course, they become friends.
I would maybe, my kind of like tip is always to help your network. If someone is looking for a job or for an apartment, always to say, yeah, no problem, I'll reach out to my network. And then it's not only you kind of like reconnect people, you also help someone else. And I think you don't need to work in that. You actually, if you want to help this person. And now I see that actually we have a lot of questions. I was looking at the wrong place. So I will just kind of like, I see that we can also bring someone on stage, or?
Yes, I think you can if you want. I think the people that are at the bottom, you can bring them on stage.
So I think we have Julia here. Yes, Julia?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
I founded my startup last month. It's called Simply LCA, and we're in the field of lifecycle assessment. And actually this week we joined the Impact Hub Berlin in a startup program with many more startups. And we did this exercise, which was very interesting. We put every startup and its members had to put the values that were important for them. So my question for you is, what values do you look for when establishing a connection? Thanks.
Thank you, Julia. So what kind of value you're looking for when establishing new connection? That's a tough one.
I think for me, we're an impact startup after all. So what we do, our sort of leasing service is like we're a circularity solution. So, and everything we do with keeping in mind that we want to make a positive impact. And in a way, it also is where I'm seeking contacts, and how I want to grow my network is I'm interested in people who, to some extent, also work on that. So I think I'm being very topical when it comes to that. And I'm searching for people who value sustainability and inclusiveness and these kinds of values for personal reasons, but also for business reasons. That's what I'm interested in and want to concern myself with.
Tina?
It's a really interesting and tough question, I have to say, because I think the company you work for has values, and you're at the same time a promoter of these values, and then you have personal values. And I think what's really important in networking is establishing trust quickly, because you open up. So creating a trusted relationship, transparency for me is a really good value, because what I don't like in these networking events, if you pretend to want something but you actually want something else, and I normally feel that, and it's coming back to your point of authenticity. That one I normally catch if there's something weird about how I get approached, but I can't really connect it to a personal value.
Melanie, anything
Yeah,
else to add?
I would, but also to just quickly add, say, there's always, if you do networking for your company, you maybe don't have the luxury to choose to whom to speak all the time. There may be some people you just need to connect with anyway. But if I want to personally connect to someone for private or business reasons, it's definitely this authenticity. So if I have the feeling someone is not him or herself, then I have a problem. And this can be the most salesy and arrogant person, but if I feel, okay, that's just you, it can still be a nice person, right? But what I don't like is if someone pretends to be someone he or she is not. I think that's my red flag, I would say.
Yeah. I think business eventually you do with people, with individuals, and not with a company. So it's really important to connect in that level. And we have time for last question, which actually I really like, of Abigail. What's a networking mistake did you learn from? And I'm actually very curious to hear your answers.
Maybe one I had to learn quickly at the event is how to leave out of a conversation that is just not going somewhere. And I'm still learning, but I get better like this. Oh, I need to go to the toilet, or I just saw someone. So to just, I make this mistake a lot, to just stay too long with someone who is clearly not really interested, maybe, or it's just want to talk and talk.
Melanie, do you know Sonia's advice? Because I actually received advice from Sonia on that, from APX too. She had advice to say, she always says like, oh, I don't want to occupy your time any longer. I leave it. So I'm gonna leave now. I don't want to occupy your time.
Oh,
and I found it so smart, and I'm actually using that now because it is an annoying. It's like it's an uncomfortable situation, and that's a super sleek way out, I feel.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that's good to know. Tine, any piece of advice?
I think my biggest mistake was not networking when I had the opportunity to network. What I said in the beginning, to just feel like I'm in the wrong place, I can't add value, kind of imposter syndrome. Why is everyone is smarter around me, and just leaving? I obviously spent too much time in that in my early years of the career.
Yeah, I think that it's never too early or too late to start. So,
and I think just to add to it, maybe also networking up is something that maybe I was also not, I didn't dare to do. So much like Tine, you were saying, like imposter kind of feelings where you feel like, do you have to network like on a horizontal level, or can you go basically up as well and just be like bold enough to, of course, like to network all your way up, basically. I think that's also something you can't start early enough with. To grow that ties, especially if you're in a more corporate environment. I think that's super important then.
Yeah, definitely. I think not only in corporate, but also as a founder, with whom it is that you're actually talking. And since we're running out of time, I would like to thank you, Melanie, Linda, Tine, and the great team of Female Founder for hosting us today. We are here, and you can also find us on LinkedIn to network if you want to. And let's keep in touch, and hopefully to see you sometime in person.